Rain drummed softly against the glass walls of the top-floor conference room of Argent Dynamics, the largest tech logistics company in the country. The polished black table reflected the CEO's still figure like a dark mirror. Henry Caldwell sat in his motorized wheelchair at the head of the table, his eyes fixed not on the anxious employees before him but on the city skyline beyond. His once commanding hands now lay motionless on his lap. 2 years earlier, an accident had stolen the use of his legs and much of the feeling in his arms. Since then, his reputation for decisive leadership had hardened into something colder, sharper, an armor of control to hide his vulnerability. Today, the air was thicker than usual. Mid-morning sunlight tried to filter through clouds but was swallowed by the grey storm. A row of vice presidents lined one side of the table, murmuring to each other in low voices. At the far end stood a janitor, his head bowed, cap in his hands, uniform still damp from wiping the marble lobby floors. His name was Miguel Alvarez. For 15 years he had worked nights and early mornings, largely unnoticed except for his immaculate cleaning and his quiet smile when he greeted employees arriving at dawn. But Henry had noticed. Not the smiley, he noticed the mistakes. The late nights, the occasional coffee cup left in a hallway, a trash bin not emptied fast enough. At least, that's what Henry's assistants had whispered to him. And now, with quarterly losses threatening and board members sharpening their knives, Henry decided to cut costs starting with the invisible staff. Miguel, the oldest janitor, was to be let go first. A thick file sat on the table in front of Henry. Inside it, Miguel's record. A termination letter lay on top, unsigned but ready. Henry stared at it but didn't reach for the pen. His daughter's voice lingered in his mind from that morning phone call. "Daddy, can I visit you at work today?" She had been persistent. He'd agreed, distracted, thinking it would be a harmless distraction before the board meeting. She was 6. She still believed her father could do anything. He hadn't told her about the accident in words she could understand. She had simply seen him in the wheelchair one day after coming home from her grandmother's. Yet she'd never cried. She had just looked at him, wide-eyed, as though she were memorizing something. Now, as Henry stared at the file, the boardroom door opened. A small figure in a yellow raincoat stepped in, escorted by Henry's assistant. Her hair was dark and damp from the rain. She clutched a worn pink backpack covered in stickers. The executives shifted uncomfortably, unused to the sight of a child in their glass fortress. Henry's assistant whispered, "Your daughter insisted, sir." She said, "It's important." Henry tried to straighten but his body fought him. "Clara," he said softly. She ran to him, arms wrapping around his waist, pressing her cheek against his suit. He felt the faint pressure, nothing more, but his heart lifted anyway. "Daddy," she whispered, "don't do it." He frowned. "Don't do what, sweetheart?" She glanced at Miguel, still standing at the far end, eyes downcast. "Don't make him go away, please." The room went still. A vice president coughed. Henry's jaw tightened. "We'll talk about this later," he murmured. He gestured to his assistant to take Clara outside, but she clung to his wheelchair. Then she climbed onto his lap. She was small enough still to do that. She leaned close to his ear. "I will heal you," she whispered. Henry froze. The words struck him like a chord plucked deep inside his chest. He stared at her, then at Miguel. The janitor looked up, startled, then quickly looked down again. The executives exchanged confused glances. "Clara," Henry began. Her tiny hand moved to his wrist. Her thumb rubbed the vein there as though feeling for something. "You're hurting," she said softly. "But he's kind. He gives me candies when we come here. He told me a story about angels cleaning the sky." Her eyes filled with tears. "Please, Daddy, don't make him leave." Miguel swallowed hard. "Mr. Caldwell, I never meant any disrespect." "I don't know why his voice faltered. Henry's mind raced. This was supposed to be a simple cost-cutting move. Why did everything feel suddenly tangled? He had been ready to fear Miguel without a second thought. But now his daughter was here, speaking of healing, pleading for a stranger. He felt a crack in his armor. The board members watched, some impatient, some curious. They were used to Henry making swift decisions. They weren't used to him hesitating. Henry pushed a button on his wheelchair and rolled closer to Miguel. "How long have you worked here?" he asked, voice sharper than he intended. 15 years, sir," Miguel said quietly. "And you know my daughter?" Miguel hesitated. "Only from the few times she visited. She likes to watch me clean the fish tank in the lobby. I told her stories, that's all." Henry glanced at Clara. She nodded vigorously. "He makes the fish dance when he taps the glass." A flicker of a smile touched Miguel's face but faded quickly. Henry's voice softened. "Do you have family?" Miguel's eyes darted to the floor. "Yes, sir. A wife with health problems. A son in college." This job a broken bar, it's everything. Henry inhaled sharply. He thought of the accident, the hospital bills, the nights when Clara would crawl into his bed, whispering stories to him to help him sleep. He thought of Miguel's quiet presence in the building all these years. How had he never noticed? Clara pressed her palm against his chest. "You're stronger than you think," she said softly. "But you need help too." The rain outside turned heavier. Thunder rolled in the distance. Something inside Henry shifted. He closed the folder slowly. "Miguel," he said at last, "I won't be letting you go today." The board members stirred, one of them starting to protest, but Henry raised a hand. Meeting adjourned. As the executives filed out, muttering, Clara slid off his lap and stood before Miguel. "See?" she said. "I told you he's kind." Miguel blinked rapidly, his eyes bright. "Thank you, little one." Henry rolled his chair closer. "Miguel, wait. Tell me, why does she think you can heal me?" Miguel's brow furrowed. "I don't know, sir. I never said such a thing. I only told her stories about my grandmother in Oaxaca. She was a healer. A broken bar. People came to her with pain. Maybe your daughter remembered." Clara tugged Henry's sleeve. "He knows about the hands of light. That's what he told me. His grandma taught him." Henry stared at Miguel. "Hands of light?" Miguel shifted uncomfortably. "Old stories, folk remedies." "I don't practice anything. Just a broken bar prayers." Henry almost laughed, but something in Miguel's eyes stopped him. He remembered the long nights after the accident when nothing worked: physical therapy, new treatments, endless injections. He remembered wishing for something, anything, beyond the clinical whiteness of hospitals. Clara whispered, "Let him try." The room was empty now except for the three of them. Rain streaked the glass. Henry felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Part of him, the rational CEO, wanted to dismiss it all as childish imagination. Another part, the father who had lost so much, wanted to believe. Miguel hesitated, then nodded slowly. "If you're willing, sir, I can try a broken bar, but I promise nothing." Henry looked at Clara, then at Miguel. "Do it." Miguel knelt beside the wheelchair, his hands trembling. He placed them gently over Henry's useless legs. His palms were calloused from years of work. He closed his eyes and murmured something in Spanish, a prayer Henry couldn't understand. Clara stood very still, watching. Minutes passed. Nothing happened. Henry felt nothing. He almost told Miguel to stop. Then, faintly, like the echo of a forgotten song, he felt warmth, a tingling in his thighs. It was so slight he wondered if he imagined it. He stared at Miguel's bowed head. Clara's eyes shone. Miguel whispered one last word and removed his hands. He looked exhausted. Henry blinked. The warmth faded but the memory remained. "A broken bar." Henry swallowed. "I felt something." Miguel nodded. "Maybe hope," he said quietly. Clara slipped her hand into Henry's. "See, you're healing already." Henry sat back, shaken. The storm outside eased, sunlight breaking through a gap in the clouds. For the first time in months, Henry felt a flicker of something other than resignation, not just hope. Gratitude. That night, Henry couldn't stop thinking about the warmth. He researched Miguel's hometown, Oaxaca, folk healing traditions, prayer practices. He found old articles about Miguel's grandmother, a midwife and herbalist known for her community service. He wondered how much of her teaching had passed to her grandson. Over the next weeks, Henry invited Miguel to his office after hours. At first, just to talk. Miguel told him about his life, his struggles, his belief that kindness could heal unseen wounds. Clara often joined them, sitting cross-legged on the carpet, listening. Slowly, Henry began to change. Not just his body, although he did regain faint sensation in his hands and a small ability to move his torso, but his outlook. He started noticing people, not as line items, but as lives. Miguel continued his work, but now Henry insisted he be paid more, given benefits, and recognized publicly. The board objected. Henry ignored them. Shareholders questioned his priorities. Henry told them a healthy company starts with healthy people. Clara watched it all with quiet satisfaction. "See, Daddy?" she said one evening as he practiced moving his fingers. "Healing is when people help each other." Henry realized she was right.